Hey, this is Danny from Weird and Wired, and this right here is an Epiphone SG Pierced. These were made by Epiphone in Korea in the early 2000s as part of their E-series, and it's a guitar I have a very specific memory of. I remember seeing someone at school with one of these and I was absolutely fascinated with it. I was asking them questions like, how did you get that big hole in the body, and how did you get these rings in the headstock? And they just said, I bought it that way, it's how it came. I just couldn't believe that they made a guitar which had these details, because at the time I absolutely loved blasting stickers on a guitar and making it personalized in that sense. So this really stood out to me. This came up available for sale quite local to me. I jumped at the chance just to kind of get reacquainted with this, really get my hands on it and find out a bit more for myself what that guitar that I saw was, and then ultimately do something with this. Let's make this playable again. Before we get on to what we're gonna do with this, I'm just gonna go over a few of the details of what this guitar is. Obviously, it's an SG shape. The design of this was to make a really cool SG look even cooler. Whether that has stood the test of time is totally in the eye of the beholder. I've kind of put this out there on the Weird and Wired Instagram, and it's been quite overwhelmingly thinking it's not the prettiest guitar, but it's not trying to be the prettiest guitar. So perhaps that is, if anything, the biggest compliment this guitar could get. Some of the things I think are cool about this is the offset open book headstock, the big red E as well, of course the great big X hole in the body, the X inlays as well, and just the body having been purposefully dinged up from the factory, which I mean, if you're gonna bash this around, you're maybe gonna feel a little less worried about that. And this is an interesting one as well, because the upper horn on the inside looks as if someone has possibly touched up the paint. It's just a matte black finish on this, so if you did want to cover up any unintentional dings, you could do that. It's hard to tell if that is what is going on with this bit here, because there's other dings in the body which haven't been covered up. We've got no electronics going on with this thing. Unfortunately, we don't have the original E-series humbucker, which was a real high hot output pickup. So that is really why I put this on the Weird and Wired Instagram story, because I wasn't entirely sure what I want to do with this thing. Normally a project like this, I would try and bring it back to its former glory, keep it fairly original, but since I've had this, there's been a couple of these online available, and that's telling me that these aren't particularly rare. So that then kind of opens up the possibility of, why don't we just do something a bit wacky with this? So that was the question I put out, and the response was, do something wacky with it. So I've been thinking for a few months now while I've had this, because even though I'm not gonna bring this back to stock, I don't want to do any modifications which are going to be permanent, just in case someone down the line gets this guitar and they want to bring it back to stock. Maybe they've got an even fonder memory than I do of this guitar. So I thought long and hard about what I can do with this to make it pretty weird and not completely irreversible. So let's get this on the bench and let's get weird. here we are. This is the weirdest wiring I could think of for this guitar without doing anything totally irreversible, which mainly meant adding any extra holes, modifying in any way. So it's a pretty simple wiring that I've ended up doing. It is a single pickup in the neck position. This is a humbucker size P90. This is actually a bridge pickup. It's something I've done in the past, putting a bridge pickup in the neck position. Instead of having a warmer tone, it's a little bit brighter, a little bit spankier. That being said, I have no idea what this particular pickup sounds like. I knew I wanted a humbucker size P90, and this was the only one I could find available in black because I really wanted to lean into the black and red theme of this guitar. We have a volume control with an obnoxiously large radio control knob and a momentary kill switch. This momentary kill switch took a bit of research to find. It fits the hole which would originally have been for the three-way pickup selector. Other momentary kill switches I've used in the past do require an extra bit of drilling to kind of widen the holes, but this was a perfect fit for that, so I'm glad I persevered to find something that would really stick to what I had in mind for this. This did not have a cavity control cover, so presumably this would be black, much like the rest of the guitar. So I figured if I'm adding parts, I want to make it really obvious what I've added. So I decided to go for red to really highlight that and also lean in to the black and red theme. Again, that is why I've gone for silver screws instead of black. Black would have been absolutely spot on for the rest of the guitar, but I even wanted to just really highlight what is not original about this guitar. And since I had such a large sheet of pickguard material left to cut down and play with, I thought I would make a little cover for the bridge pickup route because that wasn't going to be getting used, and I thought, again, trying to make it tidy, make it neat, kind of really put a bow on this thing. And the last few things to note is that the nut has been replaced. The nut that came with this when I got my hands on it wasn't the original, and there are some scuff marks either side where the nut sits, showing where someone's maybe had a bit of a falling out trying to remove the original nut or a pre-existing nut. And it's nothing detrimental, it's all just surface level scratches. If you did want to touch it up, again, it's just a matte black finish, so in terms of all the finishes you could have, it's a pretty nice one to work with. But seeing as this is a little bit road worn and this body literally comes from the factory with dents in it, I can live with having a few scratches up there. And the bridge posts also show some signs of wear, mainly that someone has probably adjusted the action for this in the past using a screwdriver, which was perhaps not the right size. But other than that, this is totally functional, totally playable, and I've had a lot of fun coming up with this idea, putting it together. Let's hear how this sounds. So there we go, this Epiphone SG Pierced given a total makeover. But aside from how it looks, how does it play? It plays like a lot of other SGs I've played in the past. It's got a really comfortable body, it's a really good weight, the neck is a really nice profile, you can reach all the frets you want. The only thing I don't really like about it is the earrings up the top on the headstock. Not for the aesthetic look, I honestly don't mind that. It's just the jingle jangle when you're playing at low volumes, but I mean, if you're playing on a stage, for a cranked out amp, as I'm sure they intended this to be played in that way. It's not going to bother you. The action on this thing can get super low, just like a lot of other SGs I've played. So if you like your fast play, it is great for that. In terms of our pickup, the kind of mystery humbucker size P90, it sounds like a P90 to me. I'm happy with that. I always love having a momentary kill switch to play with, and it's just makes me want to play kind of bluesy and a little bit funky, which is absolutely not what they probably intended this to be used for back 20 years ago when this thing first came out the factory. But it's a good all-rounder, really. I would love to know what you guys think. What are your thoughts on the Epiphone SG Pierced, the original, this modified one? Have you played one? Do you have any fond memories of him yourself? I would love to hear all your thoughts and feelings, and until the next time, keep it weird and keep it wired.
Weird and wired.